I think to be a really successful director, especially in stop motion, you have to be really good at getting those ideas out of your head and across to someone else who's going to interpret them and bring something to it. Hello, I'm Will Becher. I'm an animator and director at Aardman Animations, where we make Wallace and Gromit, Shaun the sheep, and many other characters come to life. And this is how I made it. The animation process is actually quite simple, and it hasn't really changed for 100 years. Stop motion animation involves moving objects and taking separate photographs. We now shoot on digital stills cameras, but originally we shot on celluloid film, and the film would be exposed for 1 frame at a time. So this is actually from Curse of the Were-Rabbit, and the animator will go into that scene, the miniature model, and they'll manipulate the puppet, and then they'll take the hands away and take a photo. And when we play this film back, it goes through a projector against a shutter at 24 frames per second, and that is what creates that illusion of life. And that's still how we do it. We shoot on digi stills, but we're essentially still just taking photographs. So my first job in the industry was actually through work experience, and I was a 3-week work placement on Chicken Run. It was Aardman's first feature, and my job was to press out chicken wings. It was a summer holiday job. I'd finish this sort of sculpt and then give it to the animators, and they could use it during the animation process. My first paid job was as a runner, which is quite a common way for people to get into the industry. And my first job as an animator, amazingly, was on Curse of the Were-Rabbit, so with Nick Park and Steve Box, and that was a dream come true. Aardman involves lots of people, like a huge team of people, but it always starts with the story, and we spend a long time working on the script and trying to develop it. And because stop motion animation takes a long time, we actually try and draw the whole film first as a sort of very rough storyboard. Once we've done that, we film the storyboard and we create an animatic, which is our full length. We can add sounds and music and things to it, and that allows us to test the ideas and to see if they're working. And then once we're happy, the story's sort of working on the screen, we go through the process of building everything and then making all the models, which are very, very high end. They take weeks to make, these models. And then we light everything. So lighting's another big part of it, and cinematography. And then the animators get their chance to bring those characters to life in the sets. And on a feature film, we try and animate about 5 seconds a week per animator. That's our aim. And actually that's quite hard work. So a big film will have about 30 to 40 animators working for anything from half a year to a year and a half. But of course, short films can be just one person doing it all themselves. Well, I think one of my favourite parts of the animation process is when we take our first puppet for the first time and animate it. And before that point, it's only ever existed as an idea or as a drawing or as a model. But those very first tests we do with a new character, they're the bit that I love. I love animating that because you're creating a character for the first time, and I love seeing them back. And I think on the projects I've worked on, having that role as a lead animator, someone who is trusted to have a go with a new character, that's where I've really enjoyed it. It's the most open moment in the film where anything goes. And it's not all good. You know, you do some things that don't really work, but that is part of finding the character. So I love that, just finding the character on screen through my hands. Animation is a medium that involves creating a world and a story from scratch quite often. We do need lots of different people to do that. But because we're working in a physical, real world, there's a lot of teamwork, and we often meet up during the day. So we'll have ideas meetings and we'll have storyboard meetings, but then we'll look at designs. And the most important thing at every stage is communication. So I think to be a really successful director, especially in stop motion, you have to be really good at getting those ideas out of your head and across to someone else who's going to interpret them and bring something to it. So it's a really brilliant process that involves lots of teamwork. I wouldn't say there's one stage where everything slots in, but all the way through the film, things are locking into place, and quite often story ideas that aren't quite working go away and come back in another form. And that's really interesting. I mean, I'm fascinated, having worked on a number of films, how much of the story is still to be resolved when we actually start shooting. We have a visual language, I'd say, at Aardman. We have our own style that's built up over the years and been inspired by lots of different directors, but a lot of the time it's from the founders, Peter Lord and David Sproxton, but also Nick Park. They've created this sort of visual language, a lot of which is about comedy. The teams work to sort of develop those ideas. So when I work with Shaun the sheep, quite often I'm thinking of my own environment, situations I've been in, to try and identify with what he's going through. Shaun is a really wonderful character to animate. He's very cheeky. He's the sort of character I wish I could be a bit more. He's full of energy and full of, excitement, and he just wants to have fun. So we're thinking about our own lives and thinking about when we're making a feature film like Farmageddon, we'll have references from our family, from going to parties, from knowing what it feels like to lose control a bit of a friend who's gone a bit wild, as Lula does in the film. And so we're using those references. We're also just thinking about the classic silent movies, such as Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin. We're leaning into those traditions of comedy. Farmageddon as well involved a huge amount of sci-fi, so we had a lot of fun thinking about E.T., 2001: A Space Odyssey, Close Encounters, all of those sort of very rich sci-fi references, they all came into play. So I've got a few ideas about how people getting into the industry might help themselves. Like everything else I've said, there isn't really a clear path quite often. It's a, in my experience, it's been about sometimes generating your own luck, being in the right place at the right time. Nowadays, you can make work quite easily. So I think I would say the most important thing is probably to make things and to share them with people. I work with the Aardman Academy now, and the Aardman Academy is part of our internal training, but we also train externally. And I think one of the biggest things I see is people with self-doubt, which is a very, very normal human emotion, and limiting themselves by feeling like they're not quite good enough to do it. It's so common that I just want to say to people, your idea is as good as anyone else's. You just have to go for it. Animation is about confidence, and it's hard to create something strong if you're feeling weak inside. Don't stop yourself from having the chance before you've had a go.